Live Unrehearsed on CJAD 800. Brought to you by Marco Vendramini of IG Private Wealth Management. MarcoVendramini.com.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed. My name is Matt Del Vecchio, specializing in life transitions, downsizing, and the senior living industry.
And I'm Corey Sirota, clinical social worker and psychotherapist, specializing in grief and loss.
Coming right up on the first half of today's show, marrying during a pandemic. Can you imagine the challenges of trying to organize your special day with things changing all the time? Well, this couple is a prime example of how love really does conquer all. Corey, you've probably seen all over Facebook and social media this gentleman at the Tim Hortons getting taken down, not wearing a mask. It's making the rounds and so on. What say you?
We were having this discussion last week, and it seems that it's worthy of bringing it up again, because the truth is it's changing all the time. And it's getting more and more serious. I mean, I respect everyone's right not to wear a mask. I also respect everyone's right not to serve someone who's not wearing a mask.
Yeah, I agree, and I get the anti-maskers, but bottom line is you're going in public places, in a restaurant like this, please respect the rules. This isn't going to be forever, and no need to start refusing and taking on cops because you're not wearing a mask. So before we go on, I have to say, Corey, congratulations. Friday night, Friday evening, you're on CTV News on a wonderful segment about grieving during the pandemic. You were fantastic, and I wanted to say congrats for you on that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I think I'll put. Oh, you know what? I'll put the post up on our Life Unrehearsed Facebook page. It
was really good. Really, despite the topic of grief, it's you always give some inspiration and silver lining. So it's very, very, very nice. What do we have coming up on the second half?
We're going to be talking to the assistant general manager of the Calgary Flames. But no, it's not going to be a hockey story. This is about Chris Snow, who was diagnosed with ALS a year ago at the really young age of 38. We're going to hear from Chris about how he's defying the odds. That's going to be coming up after the 4:30 news.
Yeah, just an amazing man. Looking forward to hearing from Chris after the 4:30 news.
So now, Chloe and Matt, they were married in May. They were supposed to be married on May 23rd, 2020. And as you can all imagine, their plans, like so many others, got changed and then changed again. Yet, love seemed to conquer all, because on June 28th, Chloe and Matt were married during a homemade ceremony. We're going to hear all about that. Welcome to the show, Chloe and Matt.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Hello.
Hi, so glad that you're here. This is such a feel good. I'm smiling just thinking about this. Okay, let's start. I'm going to dial it back to the original wedding date, and how did you make your decision to cancel? What was going on?
So originally, as you mentioned, we were meant to get married on May 23rd. After we realized the severity of the situation with COVID-19, we started to reevaluate around April, thinking that, as crazy as it sounded back in March when we thought, everything will be fine by then, the reality was that it probably wasn't going to be in time for the end of May. My dad and his whole family are also from the United States, and when we realized that it probably wasn't going to be possible for people to travel, we decided to postpone the wedding. And ultimately, we had postponed to October 4th, and after our original wedding date came and went, a bunch of friends sent us pictures of themselves celebrating with us, and we made a photo album, and we're like, we don't want to be stressing about the possibility of having to postpone a second time and then not get married till next year. And we ultimately decided to do a small and intimate ceremony just with some family on the 28th.
So now what we're talking about here, we're talking June 28th, correct?
Yes.
Chloe? All right, we're talking with Chloe and Matt. That originally was May 23rd, then bounced to October 4th, and finally decided on June 28th. Now, I understand that particular date has some special meaning to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, so when we first got engaged at the end of 2018, we were honored to obviously do the wedding, but we also wanted to buy a house. And we decided that between the two, we wanted to do the house part first. So, long story short, we ended up moving into our house on June 28th, 2019. So we figured as good a day as any to mark the 1 year anniversary of moving into our house to make that also our wedding anniversary.
So nice. I love that. Okay, now I want the details. Where did you, in the end, on June 20th, where did you end up having the ceremony?
So we, as you mentioned, it was a homemade ceremony, quite literally, because we ended up having it in our backyard. And we, thanks to some help from actually Chloe's mom, and by some I mean a lot, we transformed the backyard into this beautiful space that, it was amazing what it turned out to be, and we were so happy with it.
We're talking with Chloe and Matt about getting married during this pandemic. They ended up choosing June 28th and obviously had the support of a lot of family. So speaking of family and friends, you're in your backyard. How many people actually attended the ceremony?
So there are a couple of different answers depending on whether you mean if they were physically there, because we had some people on iPads. My sister and my dad and Matt's dad, unfortunately, are all out of town. And my sister and dad walked down the aisle with us on iPads, dressed up and ready to participate. And other than that, both of our mothers were thankfully there, and Matt's sibling and my aunt, uncle, cousin, Matt's uncle, and my grandparents. And we had an officiant there, and we had some photos taken. So overall, we were a pretty small and intimate group. And it was really a lot of fun. It wasn't what we planned, but it ended up being really special. And we figure as far as the celebration with our extended family and friends, we could do that anytime.
Corey, that has to be a first that we've heard of, walking down the aisle via iPad.
Yes.
Very ingenious.
Yes.
So how I want to also understand how you managed to do, even with those that attended, the social distancing.
So for that, one thing that actually kind of helped is our plans for the summer around the house were to build a deck, and we started it hoping it would be ready for the wedding, and it quite literally was finished the morning before the wedding. So we spaced out tables on the deck, and we had a tent that covered, which turned out to be a very good thing to do. And in terms of each household was at a different table. And to help with, because we also had a bit of food, to help with not cross-contaminating anything with the food, every household labeled with their last name had their own unique serving tongs, where they served with that and only that.
Amazing. I mean, just think, Corey, how the thought that you guys had to put into this, and rules are changing, and you're trying your best to follow regulations throughout all that, and was it traditional in the sense, like, were you able to have your bridesmaids and your ushers, and how did that work?
I would say that pretty much everything about the wedding ended up being a bit unconventional. We didn't have bridesmaids or ushers or anything like that, and our family helped us out with some of the more traditional aspects. Matt's brother was our ring bearer. My sister, through iPad, ended up doing a reading at the wedding, as well as my mom and Matt's mom. And basically, we were all just, we had some people sitting in the chairs at the deck. My mom walked me down the aisle with my dad on iPad, and Matt's mom walked him down the aisle as well. So as far as the tradition, we tried to keep some of the regular elements, like saying our vows, and we had a lovely officiant, Sherry from All Seasons, who performed the ceremony for us. But as far as the people that were involved, it was a little bit untraditional. Everyone kind of taking pictures from the side, standing 6 feet apart. So it was different, but it was really special.
We're talking with Chloe and Matt. Obviously, special is right, and something to be remembered forever. And talking about something to be remembered, we're going to hear a little bit about what happened just prior to the ceremony.
Live Fun Rehearsed on CJAD 800. Brought to you by Marco Vendramini of IG Private Wealth Management. MarcoVendramini.com.
Welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Corey Sirota with my co-host Matt Del Vecchio, and we are talking with Chloe and Matt about their wedding during the pandemic. So it's very heartwarming. I'm smiling from ear to ear. I know that the plan that finally happened was you were going to get married whether it was rain or shine. And
That's right.
as I recall, when we were talking off air, it was that you thought it was going to rain, but then it held out, but not so much. What happened right before the ceremony?
So we had planned the ceremony for 4 p.m. and for the 2 weeks in advance, that long-range forecast was showing thunderstorms, and we were starting to get a bit nervous. The morning of it was a perfect, beautiful, clear day. We decided to set up some tents on the deck just in case. Thankfully, we did. And as we're getting ready, I get into my dress. Matt's already in his tux, and everybody arrives. And about 10 minutes before the ceremony, there was a torrential downpour. So it was thundering, lightning, very, very heavy rain. And I was sitting upstairs and just, what are we going to do now? And ultimately, we had some really great people there to help us out. Silvio and Caroline at Decor Eleganza had set up these tents, and also some really beautiful decorations in the backyard. And our officiant Sherry and our photographers Brolio and Sonia at Rocha Studio all sat and waited under the tent. And about 45 minutes later, it cleared up, and we ended up having the ceremony in a slight drizzle.
Oh, that's lovely. I'm glad to hear
At
that.
least it cleared up a little
Yeah.
bit. Meant to be, man, oh man, all these curveballs thrown your way, not just the day of, but months leading up to it. You know what, guys? You know what this is? This is just training for kids. This is what this is, you know? I can't imagine, because going back now, we're looking at June 28th. We're in the heat of the pandemic here, and you have to be ordering a bunch of stuff way in advance, March, April, May, and June's rentals and the food and the flowers for the ceremony. How did that process go?
It was definitely interesting, and I have to really give credit to my mom here, because Matt and I were both, at this point, we're like, we're going to get married, we'll celebrate another time, let's just stand underneath the tree in our backyard. My mom was not having that. We spoke with Silvio and Caroline at Decor Eleganza, and they set up a pergola with these beautiful birch trees and flowers and drapes in the backyard. We had a little aisle made out of rose petals, and all sorts of flowers and lanterns and fairy lights hanging from the trees. It was like a fairy tale. And it was really, really special the way that everything was set up and how everything worked out. And thankfully, we had those tents set up. I also had a friend from high school, Larissa Costner, who came and did my hair. She just started her own salon business. And a friend of my mom's, Ruthie at Trader Gourmet, had catered this beautiful dinner for us. And my mom painted the names on all those different serving utensils so that we were able to maintain that social distancing, as Matt mentioned. And Trulio and Sonia at Rocha Studio, we had hired as our photographers for the wedding. They held May 23rd for us, and then October 4th. And then at the last minute, they were happy to come jump in and take a few photos for us on the day of the ceremony that we did as well. So it was a challenge, but I have to say that my mom was the one who took up that challenge rather than Matt and I. And it was really a very special day.
It's so beautiful. That's Chloe and Matt sharing their pandemic wedding, which is going to make a great story, by the way. You know that. As you're telling your kids, grandchildren, et cetera, et cetera. I happen to have the pleasure of knowing your mom. And Susie, it does not surprise me that you did what you did and how you did it. So,
way to go, Mom.
Absolutely.
I'm curious about after the ceremony, when things, I guess, settled down, the rain settled down, how did you do, like, dancing? Did you have dancing?
Not really. We had a lot of little things that were little challenges along the way. And one of those was that I had plans to set up a playlist with my iPod, and I had this speaker, but my iPod's very old, and the day of the wedding, and I probably should have checked earlier, I realized that it wasn't compatible with the speaker. So we didn't have music. My aunt was singing a little bit, the traditional song as I was walking down the aisle. But we were sitting under the tent, and we all kind of we're just having our dinner, talking, catching up because, of course, because of the pandemic, we haven't really had the chance to even see each other in the last 2 months. So we just really had the chance to talk and enjoy each other's company for the first time in a while.
So, Corey, picture this. The aunt is singing while Chloe's walking down the aisle with an iPad with family. I love it. Talk about a unique wedding. And, you mentioned family in the U.S. I would imagine at one point in time when things do settle down, Chloe and Matt, how are you going to incorporate Chloe's family into this?
Well, hopefully we're going to still be able to have a celebration. October 4th at this point is up in the air. I don't know that that's going to happen. We're hoping, but it seems a bit unlikely given that the border closure has been extended. But right now, what was really important to us was just being married. And we figured that when it comes to the celebration, of course, it was a little bit difficult to swallow at first and to come to terms with knowing that after planning for over a year, we're going to have to change the date and we're going to have to, rebook everything and tell everybody that we've changed the date. But ultimately, we figured that as long as we can celebrate with everybody, whenever that happens to be, it's going to be a great time and we'll have a great celebration, even if it ends up being, in 2021 or 2022.
I think that is the most beautiful approach, attitude, and way to move forward with this. It's do what you need to do, and obviously the love around you. Nobody could have cared less what you were serving, or if the idea was about being with people you love and celebrating your love together. So, of course, I have to ask you. I'm sure everybody's wondering, what about the honeymoon?
Well, we haven't really put that much thought into it because we don't know when we'll be able to do anything. But before the pandemic and everything, our initial honeymoon plans, we had a few things we were considering, and who knows, maybe one day we might be able to do one of them. Like, I don't know if one of the ideas was doing a cruise. I don't think that will happen for quite some time, given everything. But we know we want to do something. We just don't know when or what that will take form.
We're talking with Matt and Chloe here about their wedding during the pandemic. Got married on June 28th, and kudos to you because there are many, many couples and families that have either postponed the wedding and let's just wait and so on, and you went for it, so just love it. And as far as that honeymoon goes, you've ad-libbed everything up till now. You're going to ad-lib your honeymoon, I'm sure, and then you can take another honeymoon when things settle down. Chloe and Matt, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time. You sound so happy together. I know you've put a lot of smiles on people's faces, and we wish you much love, much happiness.
Yes, Chloe and Matt, all the best. Mazel tov, congratulations, and just may your may your relationship be like the blades of a scissors, able to cut what comes between you without cutting each other.
Ooh, Corey, very impressive. Thanks, Chloe and Matt.
Thanks so much.
All right, Corey, what do we have coming up on the second half?
On our second half, Chris Snow was diagnosed with ALS a year ago at the age of 38. We're going to hear from Chris and how he's defying the odds. That's coming up right after the 4:30 news.